I mean, if there's one thing that we've seen from Donald Trump and his allies, they are extremely creative in the ways that they are trying to exploit their power, to break the
Yeah.
rule of law, to break government, the way it works, and to punish their enemies. And
Yeah.
we need that same kind of creative spirit to rebuild the country and to rebuild a lot of the institutions that, were too weak to withstand Donald Trump or that he actively broke.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really fascinating part of what you do is, trying to be solutions based in this, because on one hand, there's so much crap coming at us from the White House that we need to
Yeah.
block and tackle and try and mitigate harm. But we also need to keep in mind, what kind of a world do we really want to build and live in so that it can't be destroyed by people like Donald Trump in the future?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think there was an interesting example of that last night in New York where I was just reading this online this morning, so it was top of mind. But George Conway, who ran in one of the New York's congressional districts
Right.
against a bunch of other people, but he was running largely on an anti-Trump platform, and someone was pointing out online, like, it's not enough. And he
Mm.
is very anti-Trump, and that's great. But like the people who won last night and who we are seeing winning, this sort of Mamdani generation of politicians are sort of coming in with a real vision also of like what needs to happen to finally start to solve problems for working Americans who have just been left on the chopping block completely. And then also, I think, government reform. And we're seeing it with Mamdani, who goes in and like balances the budget and is, getting rid of these useless consultants who are costing lots of money and not doing anything. And just sort of people who are saying like, okay, enough talk, like, let's go in there and clean this up. So I think that we are seeing that that is the kind of candidate that people want right now. It is not, being anti-Trump is really important, but being anti-Trump plus like, what the hell are we going to do when this is over, is mandatory right now, because everybody understands that by the time this is done, this country is going to be like a pile of smoking rubble. I mean, it already kind of is. We need someone who is like, I am not afraid. I know how to get in there and start. Like, I've got an idea. I've got ideas. We need lots of people like that. There's my favorite authors is Robert Caro, and I love his books about Lyndon Johnson. I've read all of them, and I just adore them. And Lyndon Johnson had this saying that anybody can tear a barn down, but it takes a carpenter to build one. And, the Trump administration is tearing barns down, and that's all they know how to do. That is their entire vision, is tear it down. But they don't know how to build anything, not a thing. And so we need builders. We need to elect carpenters, barn builders.
That's a great metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah. Not original, but yeah.
But a good one. I mean, LBJ did have a way with words. So.
Oh, he definitely did.
Yeah.
He was a schmuck in all kinds of ways, but he was also a really incredible person in some ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this deal, if we can call it that, with Iran that the Trump administration has signed. You did a really interesting video. I thought it was a great explainer about what we're facing now after this war of choice. And I think we have that.
The humiliation of the United States is now complete. Look at this headline. Iran literally didn't wait till the week was out to announce, oh, we're charging for that strait. They've announced plans to introduce a system of maritime fees in the Strait of Hormuz in 2 months after the 60-day period of negotiations. Tehran claimed a historic victory over the U.S. and said the strait was under its control. In other words, we are never going back to what we had before. I want to try to explain this in the simplest terms possible. Imagine you're a homeowner and you live next to another homeowner for a very long time, and you two hate each other. But your neighbor has one thing that he lets you use just because he always has, and it's an easement on his property that you use to get everything into your house. But one day you decide out of the blue, I'm going to physically attack my neighbor. So what does he do? The neighbor says, well, to start with, you can't use that easement anymore. If you do, I'm going to shoot you. So now you find yourself in an all-out war with your neighbor, but also the thing that you use to get all of your supplies into your house, your medicine, your food, everything is cut off to you. So you're really suffering. You can't work. You're getting sick. You're hungry. So even though your neighbor hasn't given you anything you initially wanted, you decided, we got to stop this. Let's bury the hatchet. And the neighbor says, hey, fine, but you're never getting that easement for free again. So give me the money. So the whole long drawn out fight you just had with your neighbor accomplished nothing, destroyed a lot of things, and now you're paying for something you used to get for free. That, my friends, is where we are right now. And if you call that the art of the deal, then I've got a bridge over a strait that I'd love to sell you. What a fiasco.
You broke that down so well. It was, completely factually based, but it was still fun and entertaining. Talk to us about your process, because I mean, this is really just a great service for people who, don't have a lot of time, but they want to know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, that one, that was just off the cuff. I spent a lot of time reading about this war, and reading about everything. So I read analysis, I read, I just read a lot. And so I guess what I try to do is take all of that understanding, and I've been really fascinated by the Strait of Hormuz drama. And I think everybody understands what an absolute catastrophe this war has been, and how little we have accomplished. Zero, really. In fact, we have unaccomplished things. But yes, I think it is always useful to try to find a metaphor for things that are a little bit more complicated. The strait is not entirely complicated, and of course that metaphor that I used was not entirely perfect, but it does give a sort of sense of where we are, which is that we have picked a stupid battle, forgetting that we needed something very vital from the person we picked the battle with, and now we are back to where we were in the beginning, except now we're paying for something that used to be free. And it is really, there's no overstating what a stupid war this was. It was just unbelievably stupid. And it's important for people to understand that, because one of my jobs as a content creator or video maker, whatever you want to call it, is to give people tools that they can use to talk to other people. Because I don't really talk to Trump voters. I have a lot of animosity towards Trump voters. I don't want to talk to them, and I'm really blessed that I don't have them in my family, but a lot of people do. So I guess I would talk to them if I had the chance. I generally don't, but I want to give you ways to talk to people who maybe are Trump voters, but more importantly, the people who are just not paying attention. And that's what we have so much of in politics, are people who are just not taking in political information. They are checked out, or they're working 3 jobs and they don't have time, or whatever. And so when we talk to those people, we want simple ways to explain what's happening so that they understand, how does this affect me? Because in the end, it always comes back to, how does this affect me? And how the Strait of Hormuz affects the average American is that we are now paying more for everything because Donald Trump chose a stupid, unnecessary war, and it's jacked up our prices. So I don't know. I guess I was looking for a simple way to explain that. And also, I'm always looking for a way to hit Donald Trump on his stupidity, or Republicans on their stupidity or their terrible policies, to show people, like, this is dumb. These people you're voting for are dumb.
Yeah.
And they lack skill, they lack compassion, and they don't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
And so that is like my constant, what I'm trying to convey to people, because I do think that a lot of people just kind of have voted for Republicans because it's like habit, or their family did. But I really want to make them understand, like, these people could not care less about you, and they don't have any strategy or policy or a plan. They're just grifting off of you.